Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at this Global Resources webinar. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Don Willey with the St. George Chamber of Commerce to give a brief welcome. Don, take it away.
Thank you, Hannah. It's a pleasure to be able to host this webinar or have the World Trade Center with us for the webinar today. This is, of course, part of our Monday and Wednesday webinar series to be able to deliver more resources to our businesses here. And this is a special one for me because prior to coming to St. George, I spent many of my days and oftentimes nights at the World Trade Center and had the great privilege of working with several of the folks that you'll hear from and didn't get a chance to work with the President and CEO Miles Hansen as I transitioned out before he came in, but I've had a chance to get to know him more as serving on the board, and just am so impressed with the leadership that we have at the World Trade Center Utah. And so we're thrilled to have him take a few minutes to speak with us and share just a brief introduction of the World Trade Center. So Miles, if you don't mind, I'm gonna kick it to you and let you give an introduction.
Miles, you're on mute.
Thank you, Jim. And an ambulance went by a couple minutes ago. I forgot I put it on mute. Thank you, Don, very much for having us today and for helping to convene some companies. We want to treat this like a roundtable, like a discussion. We've got a few companies here. I know we'll be broadcasting this on YouTube as well, as we really do everything we can to reach out and to connect with new companies we haven't worked with previously. And so we're grateful, Don, again, for your leadership in convening this and for those that are joining us today. You know, for those who aren't familiar, like Don mentioned, he is a great alum. He spent many years at World Trade Center Utah, built up the organization. We were very sad to lose him shortly before I got here, but we are an organization that is focused on helping Utah companies grow and expand internationally, attracting foreign investment here to the state, and in the process, providing strategic leadership on behalf of the state of Utah, both the governor and the legislature, to help shape how Utah is engaging internationally in a way that will bring back very real and tangible benefits for Utah companies. We do that through a number of programs and resources, including grant programs, where we can provide money, but essentially free money to Utah companies to help accelerate their growth. And we want to make sure that as we're working with companies that we're doing everything we can to reach out and identify those companies that could take advantage of our resources to help increase their sales and thereby creating jobs and increasing prosperity here in the state of Utah. Of course, right now, we're all grappling with the effects of COVID-19, both the health effects and the economic effects. What we've seen here in the state of Utah is that thanks to a good combination of leadership, policy, and a lot of good fortune, we are faring relatively better than just about any other state in the country. Also better than a lot of other countries in the world. And so what we're focusing on is in an era of really unprecedented economic disruption around the world. There are market opportunities in that disruption. And so we are leaning all the way in as an organization and as a state to help Utah companies jump out and take advantage of that disruption so they can grow and expand. Just this morning, we had a virtual trade mission with our partners in India. We had more than 60 Utah companies sign up so they could learn more about the opportunities in India, and more importantly, so that then we can build relationships with these partners in India. So now as companies are reaching out to us saying, hey, that was great. How do I connect with somebody who can help me in manufacturing or in IT or textiles or anything else? We have the partnership in the network to go and to help connect those companies. We did a virtual trade mission with Saudi Arabia, one with the United Arab Emirates in April and May. We have one with Israel later in July, focused on life sciences, aerospace, and outdoor companies. And we have one in Australia, focused on Australia as well. And so the key takeaway for, we hope, Don, for all of your members in St. George and all the companies in St. George, is that we are very actively engaged right now. And that there are many Utah companies who have figured out how they're going to survive during this COVID period. They've got their legs underneath them. And now they're starting to ask themselves, you know, we can't recover until we grow our revenue. What opportunities are there to grow revenue in other markets? And that's where we step in to help accelerate that growth by identifying opportunities and then providing the grant resources so companies can go and take advantage, can do this at lower risk to the company. And then we're leveraging our network to help provide meaningful direct matches between Utah companies and those companies or partners in other markets who can help them take advantage of those opportunities. So again, Don, thank you. Very, very grateful to Don, for Trevor from the St. George Chamber team for pulling this together. And Jim and Nicole from the World Trade Center Utah team are leading out on these efforts. And so you have an opportunity to go deeper with both of them about how exactly we can plug in and support you and your company, and how we can go and support companies that you may be working with through your company as well. So with that, Don, I'll turn it back over to you and we can move forward.
Great, masterful introduction. I just can't say enough good about Miles and the team of the World Trade Center. These individuals have really helped to demystify that process of international business. And it's something that's daunting, especially with our members. As I speak with our members, it's really daunting to even envision traveling for business abroad. You know, it could be scary just to travel for fun and then try to put in an investment, you know, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars as at stake, and it gets a little scary. And we're just privileged to have our own World Trade Center in Utah that services the entire state, our businesses, and does such great good. So I think we're going to be able to talk through a lot of the resources, like you mentioned, Miles, and really just be able to expose our businesses that are on the call to these different resources, how to leverage them, and then any tips along the way as well. So Hannah, who are we going to, Jim or?
And Don, real quick, Jim, before you jump in, Don, you hit on a really good point on travel. Travel's tough right now. When you were speaking, it reminded me of one small Utah company. They make artificial reefs and tourist destinations, and they restore reefs. They participated in our virtual trade mission to Saudi Arabia. Since then, we've been able to connect them with 3 massive tourist developments in Saudi Arabia. They're connecting with very senior people there. They're going to get a STEP grant application, and you'll learn more about the STEP grant here in a minute, so that we can help offset some of the costs that it's going to take for them to fine tune their pitch, to make sure they have a really good website ready to go. And as they're engaging with these senior leaders, they're moving full steam ahead. And what we've realized is that through technology, we don't need to get on airplanes and travel to do business across different countries. And so that's just one example of a very small company. I think they've got 7 or 8 total employees who are now working with, in a couple cases, billion-dollar enterprises in Saudi Arabia, starting relationships in May and in June, when nobody in the world just about is getting on airplanes. And so there are opportunities, and we want to plug in and help make those introductions. And now I'll kick it over. I'll get out of the way and kick it over to Jim, who's going to spend a little more time going in depth about exactly what we can do to support and how you can plug in and participate in that.
Thanks, Miles and Don. I appreciate the introduction and the kind words. You know, Miles did a good job of explaining World Trade Center Utah, what we do, why we're here. Hannah, if you'll move to the next slide. Before I jump into the resources that are available through World Trade Center Utah, I think it behooves us to talk about why international business is important for Utah, and especially for small businesses in St. George. You know, we're all dealing with the effects of COVID and learning that COVID-19 is probably going to be with us for at least a little while longer. And that's led to global disruptions in supply chains and in distribution networks that have made it hard for companies in Utah and around the world to get the supplies that they need, but also to reach their customers and deliver their products and services. This is especially true of Utah, where we're relatively more international than most of the states in the West. Some of you might be surprised to hear that Utah's small businesses export or make up something like 86% of all the exporters in Utah, and in total export about $5 billion in goods every year. That $5 billion in the Western United States is only smaller than California and Washington, or in other words, Utah is the 3rd largest small business exporter in the Western United States, west of Texas, essentially. And so Utah companies feel, I think, more integrated into the global economy and are more vulnerable to some of the shocks that can happen related to COVID-19. Now, on the flip side, as Miles mentioned, that also means that Utah companies are in a better position than companies throughout the Western United States, and in my opinion, throughout the nation and the world, to take advantage of the opportunities that are created through COVID-19. And, you know, Don mentioned that going international, even traveling international, can feel daunting. And that's certainly true. And that's why World Trade Center is here. We can help you to understand the risk and the reward of going international and how you can grow your business, even in trying times, through international sales and through the resources that we have to offer. Hannah, can you move to the next slide? So I'm not going to take too long to describe all of these services that we provide. But what I've done here is created a short flow chart or a funnel, if you will, to describe how a St. George company could take advantage of World Trade Center Utah's offerings when it comes to increasing your export sales. As Miles mentioned, World Trade Center can also support your search for international capital and also helps to provide strategic leadership to communities and to the state. So if you're a Utah company and you're thinking, how do I go international? I know nothing about this. Or maybe I know a little bit, maybe I've fulfilled a few orders in Canada or Mexico, but how do I get proactive about pursuing these opportunities? Let me tell you how you could do that. Our first and most basic offering in trade services is the training that we offer to help you understand when your company is ready or how to get your company ready to pursue international business opportunities, how to discover those opportunities, how to enter markets, how to make sure that you're well financed, how to take care of some of those logistic questions. We can help define the scope of work for your business and help you understand what it will actually take to go international and give you the tools and build up a community of partners around you that you can use to pursue those opportunities. Next, we can help you identify those opportunities through the market research that we offer. We can take a look at countries around the globe and suggest, based on what we know about those countries and about your product and industry specifically, which countries might have the most potential for you. We can take a deep dive into various countries and learn more about what their compliance regimes look like, what kind of standards and certifications your company might have to comply with. We can also help you understand the market size, what the right distribution channels are for your company if you're going to pursue business there. So we can get very detailed to help you figure out what exactly is the opportunity. And then once we understand what that opportunity is, how do you go about actually planning your market entry? How do you go about figuring out exactly how you're going to promote your product? What its price ought to be? How are you going to find distribution partners in market? And what kind of a contract do you need to have in place so that it's enforceable in that market? Once you've got a plan put together, then you're really ready to take advantage of the grant programs that Nicole is going to talk about here in a minute. And we're going to highlight the STEP grant because companies in St. George will be probably most eligible for that STEP grant program. But our grants it's reimbursable funding that is available for you to use to pursue international business development activities. From attending a trade show to getting some market research done, to doing some digital marketing. Like I said, I'll let Nicole take the deep dive with you into the STEP grant to better understand it. But know that we can help to de-risk some of these activities that you might want to pursue, that you might not otherwise be able to do because you just don't have the cash for it quite yet. We also provide opportunities for Utah companies to get their boots on the ground in market and to meet the right people through our trade missions and our trade shows. We take Utah companies across the world every year to trade shows in aerospace and defense, in life sciences, in outdoor products, and we promote shows in consumer products and other fast-moving consumer goods that you may be interested in attending. When you attend those shows, we can help you take advantage of the B2B matchmaking programs that are there so that you can actually meet vetted, qualified people who are interested in what you have to sell. And we can also help you to gain some credibility in market through things like embassy receptions. And of course, when you come on a trade mission with the governor and get to bring the governor's name with you, that's a clear sign to people in market that you're serious and that Utah is serious about you and supporting your business. So these are a few examples of how as a Utah company, you could take advantage of what World Trade Center Utah has to offer. And I would suggest that every one of you should reach out to either me or Nicole after this webinar is over, so that we can help you think through how you could take advantage of the right opportunities and how you could find new sales even right now in this COVID-19 world. Hannah, would you go to the next slide? Before I turn it over to Nicole, I need to recognize a new development at World Trade Center Utah. We've recently entered into an alliance with a few different partners here in the state specifically to support manufacturing companies. The Utah Industry Resource Alliance is, like I said, an alliance between the Manufacturing Extension Partnership through the University of Utah program, the Utah State University's Manufacturing Support Group, Impact Utah, and others who have all come together to say, how during this time can we best support Utah's manufacturers from getting back to work safely and ensuring that you're not going to have disruptions in your operations, to how do you grow your sales, how do you become more efficient in your operations during this time, and of course, how do you go international, how do you grow globally? And so there's a number of different resources and services that right now are free that you can take advantage of as a Utah business. The first that I want to make sure everyone knows about is our Get Back to Work training, which is a self-guided 2-hour course that you can take online, sponsored by the Industry Resource Alliance, that will teach you how to set up your operations in such a way that you minimize the risk to your employees and to your business of a COVID-19 disruption. If you're interested in these, please reach out to me, or you can go to utahira.org and learn more about the services and resources that are available there. I would suggest that any manufacturers or anyone who's on this call who has a client that's a manufacturer should take a look at these resources and share them out with others. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Sherwood, who is our Director of Grants and Operations and also our STEP Project Director. Nicole, go ahead, and I'll shut up now.
Good afternoon. So my name is Nicole, and I am the STEP Project Director and over the grants at World Trade Center Utah, and I'm excited to be here with you this afternoon. My contact information was on the first slide, so if after you want to contact me, because today I'm going to provide a brief overview of our grant programs, but if you want to get more information after, please feel free to contact me anyway. So I'm going to start out by going over what can you do during this economic uncertainty. And here are a couple items that you should really focus on during this time. One is strengthening your brand. 2 is increasing your online presence as we're not able to travel. Number 3 is start planning a strategy for your future so that when you are able to travel. 4 is reevaluate your finances, which I'll talk a little bit later about how you can do that with our grants at World Trade Center Utah. And number 5 is check out all available resources during this time. So at World Trade Center Utah, we have 2 main grants. The one I'm going to focus on today is called our STEP grant, and that is through the U.S. Small Business Administration. And our second is our Rural Business Development Grant, where we offer export boot camps. And if you're interested in that, Jim, who you heard from before, he can explain a little bit more about that. But today's focus is going to be on the STEP grant. So what can the STEP grant be used for? In today's time with the limited travel, the STEP grant can actually be used for a number of activities. And here are a couple of them. So the first one is an international trade mission. If there is a fee associated with participating, the STEP grant could cover that. If there's an international trade show that's moved virtual and you'd like to participate, it can also cover that participation fee. Even though travel is limited, if you are going on an export-led trip, it will cover your ground transportation or flights, as well as hotel. And then the last one I want to focus on is really our financial assistance awards. And our financial assistance awards are great at this point to really help, one, create an online presence, like I said, to really utilize these financial sources for these activities. And items that the STEP grant can be used for are compliance testing, which is great for any life science companies out there, fees for shipping, design of marketing media. We've had STEP clients use it for brochures, videos, increasing their online presence, market research, and also website optimization and translation. So these are great ways to use the STEP grant if you're not able to travel, so that you're ready to go when the markets do open up. And so to be eligible for the STEP grant, one, you need to be a small business headquartered in Utah. Some might ask, what's the catch? There is a 25% match by the grant recipient, but what that means is that 25% has to come from the company, but it's still a great option for, to receive funds to do any of your international activities. And the reporting requirements are very minimal. We just want to see how you use the funds and how it went, and we follow up with you 2 years out. And the great news is the application is now open and there is funds available. So I encourage businesses, if you have any questions, please contact me, and I hope to get an application, STEP application from you. And we also offer other resources at World Trade Center Utah. And we have, as you can see, there's a link to find out more. We work with XM, USAID, US Trade and Development Agency, and one I want to highlight is US Commercial Service. They have a number of great options today. So I encourage you to check out our website and see those available resources that you can use during these times. And here are just some additional resources. I encourage everybody to check out World Trade Center Utah's website, sign up for our newsletter, then you'll know about any upcoming webinars, trainings, any grant opportunities, as well as I would check out the business resources for COVID-19, and there's the website. And I just want to thank the St. George Chamber of Commerce. I know we've had some great STEP clients come from the St. George area, and I enjoy, working with you. So if you have any questions, please reach out.
Great, thank you guys.
At this point, we're open for questions, right?
Yeah, I have a few questions for you guys. One is for Nicole. Nicole, when are STEP grant applications due?
So the great thing is our STEP application is on a rolling basis. So they're open now. In order to utilize the STEP grant this year, your activity has to be completed before September 30th. So I encourage you to apply sooner than later. It is on a rolling basis, but once the funds are gone, they're gone. So please apply now, and the applications are open.
Great. And about how much money, how much funds do people usually receive in a STEP grant?
So small businesses can receive up to $10,000 in a given year, which is great. And a lot of times small businesses, they won't use it for one activity. So a small business may use it for example, website optimization, and receive an award for $2,000 to $3,000, and then use it for shipping. So over the course of the year, they get to that $10,000, but usually per activity, it's between $2,000 and $4,000.
Great. How many times can you receive a STEP grant? So if I've received these grants in the past, am I now ineligible to receive them again?
No, you can actually, if you've received a STEP grant in the past, I encourage you to apply. You can receive, like I said, up to $10,000 in a given year. And if you do receive an award this year, you can apply next year and in future years. So I encourage, and we do have a lot of companies that do that. They receive awards year after year.
That's great. Speaking of eligibility, how do I know if I am a small business and therefore eligible for the STEP grant?
So on our website, we actually have the criteria to understand if you're a small business. If you're under 500 employees, it's pretty obvious. However, just to check that out and to make sure that you are eligible, we have a link where you go to the Small Business Administration website and you put in your NAICS code. And if you have any questions regarding, well, what is that? That's a great opportunity to get in touch with Jim, and he can explain what it is and speak with you first. And then you put that in, and then it will tell you whether or not you're a small business. But if you have questions about that or any of the eligibility standards, I encourage you to reach out, and I'm happy to work with you to figure it out if you're a small business.
Great. And do we have to travel with WTC Utah to these trade missions and trade shows in order to utilize these funds, or can I find trade shows on my own and use the funds to attend?
That's a great question. So that's where our financial assistance award comes in. And oftentimes we find that either a place that World Trade Center Utah is traveling on a trade mission or a trade show isn't the best fit for the company, and there's a different one that fits it better. So that's where you can use the financial assistance award to travel to an independent or trade show that best fits your company. So yeah.
And would those be two separate applications?
So when you fill out a STEP grant application, you fill it out for all of your activities. So if you would like to go to a trade show, you include it in there, as well as website optimization or any other international activities. So once you fill out a STEP application, you can put in for multiple activities.
Great. Jim, what do we need to do to be ready to meet with World Trade Center Utah about training and research?
You need to call me. You need to have my email address or my phone number is what you need to do to be ready. As I mentioned earlier, we have resources and programs that you can take advantage of if you know nothing about exporting or if you're an experienced exporter. So no matter where you feel like you are, no matter how ready you might feel you are, just call. It's not hard, and we're pretty accessible. I want to talk to you. You know, it helps to mention that World Trade Center Utah, while we provide all these resources on the international front, we're also a window into all the other resource providers in the state with whom we partner very closely, the Industry Resource Alliance being just one of those. And so if you have other questions or other pain points that at your business and you don't know how to address those, you can call and talk to me too. Because I'm happy to make referrals to other people around the state who can help you to work through those issues or provide you resources to help your business survive and thrive right now.
Great. Don, do you have a question?
I do. I want to ask, I think it's awesome that we have the digital means to be able to conduct business without having to travel. I've had several businesses ask, though, when do you think we will get back to being able to travel for business? And, I can only, I think, speak to the economic landscape here in the United States, but I'm curious to hear what you're seeing in other countries, what we're hearing from other countries about transcontinental flights, being able to actually interact, what those expectations might look like, and understanding that, they may be completely different in the future. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Don, that's a great question. I'm happy to take that, and anybody else can share their perspective as well. I think first and foremost, the extent to which we're successful in stopping the spread of COVID here in Utah is going to have a direct contribution on how quickly we from Utah can get on airplanes and travel again. I think we're seeing news that the European Union is starting to open up. We starting to see a lot more travel happening there in the EU. And yet, because here in the United States, we still have increasing number of cases, Americans aren't able to participate in that non-essential travel to the European Union. We've seen reports about New York and New Jersey putting together a list of people from particular states here in the country that aren't able to travel there for non-essential travel. And unfortunately, right now, Utah is on that list. And so I think that the extent to which all of us do our part on not only wearing masks whenever we can't social distance, but encouraging other people around us to do the same thing, that's going to help us get a handle on the increasing cases we have here, which is going to hopefully get us off of a couple of these naughty lists that are making it more difficult for us to travel. More generally, though, we are talking with the governor right now. We plan on doing a trade mission to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates in November of this year. Of course, that's completely contingent on how things unfold over the next few months. But talking to our partners in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, and then working with the governor and his team, there's a high degree of confidence that we're going to be in a situation then where we're able to go as a group and travel to Saudi Arabia, the UAE. I think we've seen news reports about airlines being more aggressive on scheduling flights and filling planes up. I think that's a sign of confidence that we are figuring out, just like we're figuring out right now, how can we help to continue to engage despite some of the limitations we have right now. People are working hard to figure out how can we travel safely within this COVID environment where we're in. I traveled with my family to Moab over the weekend. And in the hotel, which was not a nice hotel, I mean, it was a great hotel, but it's not like a high-end hotel. You could see that they have taken some really pretty, what a few months ago we would have said are extreme measures, but now it's just normal measures to make sure that there was a high degree of confidence that our room was highly sanitized before we came in. And I'm sure after we left, they came in and they did that. And so I expect and I hope that by the fall, we're in a situation where we've figured this out, we've adapted, we've innovated, and we're in the process of overcoming. So we're able to get back on airplanes and start to see people travel more.
I would add that you should approach this on a regional basis, right? So COVID-19 is rising in South America, but it's falling in Europe. And so if you're planning international travel into the future, pay attention to the regions, because some places are going to be, no matter what we do, some places are going to be closed for a little while, and some places will be opening up soon. And so you can't really take the world as a whole. Instead, look, kind of plan what travel you'd like to take advantage or you'd like to do in the next year, and then pay attention to those destinations. I mean, even on a city level, the difference between Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo could make the difference in your ability to travel to a place like Brazil.
There's one point that I'd just like to add. I see we got Brad Buchanan on the call right now from America First Credit Union. And so Brad, obviously America First Credit Union, you're not exporting, right? My guess is that you're not selling loan options or lending money internationally, but you have clients that you're working with in St. George who would benefit from these programs that Jim and Nicole have gone over today. And so what we'd highly encourage you is that you think about your clientele, and so you can go to them and say, hey, we're a member of the St. George Chamber. The St. George Chamber has a partnership with World Trade Center Utah. Because you are my client and we have this relationship with the St. George Chamber, this is some free grant money that we can give to you. This is free market research, free consultations. As the banker, I think that you would benefit from these programs. And so we'd really encourage you to be forward-leaning about thinking about the companies within your clientele that would benefit from these programs. Reach out, put them in contact with Don or Jim, and we can make sure they get information. And for the others on the call as well, the same is true, right? We have lots of great companies we're working with. We're really working hard to push our partners and ourselves to go out to identify those companies that will benefit the most. And right now, in terms of our economic recovery and the economic situation here in the state, the extent to which we're successful in helping our companies get out there and grow their revenue, that's going to lead to very direct, tangible results here in Utah that will benefit all companies, not just those engaging internationally. I think it's important to note that in 2009, the depths of the Great Recession, when Governor Herbert began his administration, he had 4 priorities for the economy, one of which was growing business internationally. What we saw over the next few years was exports from the state of Utah doubling. And so we see this international trade was a very important driver of economic development here in the state that helped us bounce back economically in the last recession we found ourselves in. And as we go through this one, engaging internationally absolutely is going to be a driver that brings benefits to companies all different kinds. I'd also encourage anybody who's listening to go to the Utah Leads Together Volume 4 plan. It starts to lay out our economic recovery and revitalization plan. There on page 14, you'll see a lot of great content on how important this international engagement is to everybody in Utah through the very real, tangible economic development benefits that it brings.
Thank you, Miles. Trevor, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. So at what point should a business consider approaching the World Trade Center? You know, in my role and the chamber, we work with a lot of different businesses, you know, from those that have 50 employees, 100 employees to startups, you know. And so at what point, if say a business has a goal to go international, but they're not quite ready yet, or they're not at that stage, when do you recommend, when's the best time to include the World Trade Center into that, into the process?
You know, it's surprising how early a business can start going international. One of the success stories we've trumpeted over the years has been the work we've done with Apollo at CBSDX, which is a diagnostic company up here in Salt Lake City, who pre-revenue was able to come with us on a trade mission and gain contracts, development contracts for their technology in China. But your point is a good one, Trevor, in that not all companies are going to be able to take advantage of all our programs right now. But that's why we've staged our programs in such a way that if you know nothing about going international, or you know you're not ready to make the cash outlays to actually try some international marketing, that you can come and take advantage of our training resources. As Miles mentioned, what we provide is complementary. We contract with the state as a private-public partnership, to a public-private partnership, saying that backwards, to provide these as a public service to Utah companies. So any company can come and talk with us. If you are, let's take a specific use case though, and maybe that will help answer your question. If you are a Utah business and you right now have the goal of going international, then I'm going to look at things like, what's your sales reach today? What's your annual revenue today? And what I really want to know is, do you own your own backyard? Are you standing on your own 2 feet? And are you really committed to going international? Are you willing to put a budget together towards pursuing those sales? And if you can answer yes to those questions, then you're ready to come and utilize our services and go international. That being said, we don't turn you away if you're not quite ready. And surprisingly, even startups who are pre-revenue can take advantage of the opportunities that we provide and find amazing success as a result.
Let me ask a quick question. And this, I think, Jim, goes back to this new initiative that you talked about with the manufacturing side. We've had a lot of businesses that have struggled with their supply chains, the global supply chains. Can you speak to that? What are we seeing? What should businesses be aware of? I mean, I'll tell you, I ordered a whiteboard for the chamber in February, and it got stuck in China at the docks. It got stuck in the factory because it got shut down. Then it got stuck at the docks. Then it got to I think Minneapolis or somewhere. So finally made it here to the U.S. and then that factory got shut down. Then that's just one example. I mean, I'm not making any revenue off of that, but businesses that are really struggling with factories that are shut down, what pivots? Tell me where the World Trade Center plays into those kind of conversations as well in helping resolve that or identify other opportunities. Is that part of what you guys do?
That's a great question. The short answer is yes, and I'm experiencing the same pain, or have experienced the same pain as you, Don. When those stimulus checks came in, I made a wild purchase of a new technology that I was really interested in that's being manufactured in the Shenzhen area, just outside. It ships out of Hong Kong, and so I pre-ordered this product, and it was supposed to ship. The first batch of these products was supposed to ship in June this month, and in May we found out that due to a canceled shipment, that those products had all been rolled over at the port and are waiting another 8 to 10 weeks before they'll be able to get out of port. So I definitely feel your pain, and while this is a personal pain for me, clearly this is something that is affecting your businesses, right, in St. George and across the state of Utah. And so there are a few ways that World Trade Center can help you right now. We're not always going to be able to help you to work with your current suppliers. They may be back in business, they may not be back in business, just depending on the state of COVID wherever they are. But there are a few things that you can do. One is come talk to us about how you might be able to diversify and find suppliers who right now can fill the demand that's being missed. There's a lot of companies who right now are thinking about how do I make my supply chains more resilient, and diversifying your suppliers, particularly for critical components or materials, is absolutely essential to doing that. World Trade Center is an incredible international partner network, not only through the broader World Trade Center Association, but through the relationships, the one-on-one personal relationships that we've made as a result of all these trade missions and trade shows that we've gone on. If you are looking for other suppliers or to diversify your supply chain, come and talk to us. Maybe right now you're devoting a lot of working capital to your supply chain. You've got a lot of cash invested in your supply and in your inventory, and you're wondering, how do I better manage that so that I have more cash on hand, I'm a little bit more liquid, so I can respond to the constant disruptions that are happening. Come talk to us about taking advantage of the foreign trade zone, or taking advantage of duty drawback programs, which are ways that you can kind of claw back the duties and fees that you pay to the US government when you import goods, or ways you can better manage your inventory so that you don't have to pay those duties and taxes until you're actually fulfilling shipments to customers. Those are just a few simple things you can come and talk to us about early on. I think everyone is taking a long-term look at their supply chains, because the hidden costs of doing something like sourcing out of Asia are all of a sudden becoming very apparent, right? We all went there because labor is cheap and they could provide those goods at a low cost. But we're just finding out now that these long, fragile supply chains come with very high hidden risks. And so World Trade Center Utah, we're going to do our best to help you to diversify your supply chain, to take advantage of assets or programs here in Utah to better manage cash along your supply chain, to better manage your inventory, and that's probably where you should start. I should also mention that we have partners here in the state who can help you along with other supply chain related questions that you have, whether that be compliance or risk management or other things. We have great partners in the state who help companies to do that.
Great. Does anyone else have a question before I ask the last one?
Can I ask one more? I'm sorry, guys.
Please ask as many questions as you'd like.
Can you speak, and Miles, maybe you could speak to this just with your experience, but I think just maybe diving a little bit more into the connected network that the WTC has around the globe, tapping into the consulates, embassies that have the foreign commercial officers stationed there. Could you dive just a little deeper into that and talk about why that's important and how that advances U.S. business interests around the globe?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Don. And so when we talk about this international network, I haven't thought about it this way, but I think I could describe it as being comprised of 4 different layers. The first layer is we're a World Trade Center. There are more than 300 World Trade Centers around the world in 89 different countries. The mission of the World Trade Center Association is to make doing business on the other side of the world as easy as doing business across the street. And so we have this network of World Trade Centers all over the world where we can reach out to different markets to seek assistance and to seek introductions. One quick example, a Utah company came and they were looking for dyeing equipment to dye materials, and they wanted to source it in Bangladesh. I don't know anybody in Bangladesh as an organization. We haven't done work in Bangladesh before. So we reached out to the World Trade Center at Dhaka and said, hey, here's a request. Can you help? And they went through a bit of a chain of people there, but they ended up having somebody who knew the space well, who the Utah company could jump on a phone call and to try to get some assistance on trying to source this dyeing equipment in Bangladesh. The next layer would be, Don, you mentioned this, the United States Commerce Department has teams in embassies around the world. We have an office here in Utah that is focused on helping Utah companies connect with these embassy teams in virtually every country on the planet. Shelby Dyack runs the office here in Salt Lake City. She's a very, very close partner. We've worked with these embassy teams in many different countries. We've got many direct relationships there. And so as companies come, the Commerce Department provides Jim, or I think as Jim mentioned a little bit earlier, they do matchmaking services. They can help do due diligence for you. They can help promote your company in market, and they provide these different services usually for a fee, a very reasonable fee, and we can use step grants to help pay for that for you. Now they're doing it for free as long as you sign up for a service before the end of September to use the service by the end of the year. The next layer in that network would be this network of Utah, the Utah diaspora, if you will. We've got people from Utah or people who have strong connections to Utah all around the world. And as we're engaging internationally, we've got a great database where we can tap in to that network and help leverage their expertise, their connections to different markets to help Utah companies. And then the last layer are the people that we get to know through all of our programming. And whether it's a trade mission or a trade show where we're traveling internationally, I mentioned before the virtual trade mission we did with India this morning. Now we have a direct relationship with the chief economist for IBM in India, with the head of the World Trade Center Mumbai, which is a huge financial and business hub in India, with the head of, or the chair for a nationwide global trade organization in India. And then there were a couple others on the call as well. So now we have those direct relationships. And so we can leverage those relationships to help Utah companies with any issues that they may have in India. And so we have this database comprised of all 4 layers of this network. And so if a company comes and says, hey, I want dyeing equipment in Bangladesh, or I want introductions to aerospace in France, we can go to that database and leverage that network to help open doors and generate momentum for our Utah companies.
Great. We had a question submitted. Would you recommend starting a company or developing product during this time?
Don, you've got the general business perspective down in St. George. I'd be curious to get your response on that one.
I think so. I think that during these times of uncertainty, we see a lot of innovation and pivoting, and frankly, from that, a lot of businesses emerge. And I think we saw that coming out of the financial crisis in 07, 08, 09. We saw a lot of new startups that emerged. Obviously, those fluctuations in the market can definitely take out some businesses, but it also provides an opportunity for some market reset and innovation opportunities. So I think it's always a good time to start a new business. It can be a little, you got to handle it differently now than in other times, given some health constraints. But my answer is absolutely.
Yep, and Don, I just would echo that. As you were speaking, I Googled companies that started during a recession. And just some examples: Netflix, Airbnb, Trader Joe's, Microsoft, Sports Illustrated, MTV, General Electric, Warby Parker. It's General Electric. The Great Recession of 1876. They've been around a little while. Warby Parker, Revlon, and let's see what number 12 is, Disney. So there you go, 12 examples of companies that were started during a recession.
We don't talk enough about MTV during these webinars. I'm glad to hear that they started during a recession. I'll add my 2 cents, which is the hot new business model right now: retailing PPE. Absolutely. If you've seen some of the stores that have popped up on main streets across the world, it's fantastic. So there's your example of your local startup right now during COVID-19.
I gotta say, this is funny. My wife texted me, and she's up in Salt Lake right now with the kids, and she was like, I need you to go to Old Navy and I need you to buy masks for the kids." And I just thought, it's 2020 and I'm going to Old Navy not to buy shirts, pants, shoes, or anything for my kid. I'm going to buy them face masks, designer face masks. It's crazy, right? PPE, here we come.
Yeah. I hear the sizes run small at Old Navy, Don. Can you confirm?
Hey,
The
I
mask
will,
sizes?
I will go find out. Don't you worry.
That's great. I just have one final question for you guys, and we've kind of touched on it, but just to re-emphasize this. Why should we go international? Why should a business do business internationally?
Jim,
Well,
why
I
don't you
can
take this?
I can jump in and start, but there's at least 6 of us on this webinar who can answer that question pretty well, I think. So the first and maybe the most obvious reason you should go international is because the United States only has a small portion of the world's entire population and only a portion of the world's purchasing power. And while the US is an amazing market to be in, and it's the best place maybe to start and grow your business, you certainly shouldn't constrict yourself or restrain yourself to only selling into the United States when there are so many consumers across the world who would like to use your products and look to the US to provide the highest quality and best, most innovative products in the world. So that's the first reason. The second reason is because as you go international, you grow your business and you become more resilient. So going international is great because not only do you become more competitive here, you become competitive internationally, but you also become more competitive here at home. You're more likely to succeed here at home because you become much more intentional about your business, proactive about your business. A great example of this is Caddis Enterprises, which is a company up here in Salt Lake who sells plastic products into aerospace and other industries, who we've been working with since 2013 to go international, and seen incredible growth on the international side. But during that same time, Natalie Caddis, the owner there, credits a lot of the work she did on the international side is helping her be better here on the domestic side. So you just become more competitive. You also tend to do better during times like this, during recessions. A study by the Brookings Institute showed that from 2005 to 2009, small manufacturers that were exporting did much better during the Great Recession than those manufacturers who weren't. To the tune of, I think, by the end of that period, manufacturers who had been exporting had a 7% increase in their annual sales, whereas companies that had not been exporting saw something like a more than 30% decrease in their sales during the recession. And so diversifying your customer base, diversifying your revenue streams is a way to help ensure that when the next pandemic comes around, when the next depression hits, that you're shored up, right, against those disruptions, and that you can continue to do business, employ people, and do good in your community.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And thank you everyone for joining this. We're so happy to have everyone here. As you close out of this webinar, there should be a survey that pops up in the link. Please fill that out so that we know how to improve our webinars in the future. And please continue to engage with World Trade Center Utah and the St. George Chamber. And we really want to thank Trevor and Dawn at the St. George Chamber for helping us pull this together. This has been a great opportunity to connect with you guys. And like I said, I'll be sending out a link to this recording later with the slides and links to all of the resources that have been mentioned. So please look out for that, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.